But another round of trailing off the coast of California as another plume of tropical moisture begins to work inland. You can see the trails begin to take shape, line after line, and they're even cutting some of them off at the bottom there. I'm here in Colorado, and underneath some of this streaking high clouds, or actually mid and some lowish clouds, those we saw the time lapse today. And then the snow is now departing the Dakotas and Minnesota, as it was terribly chilly up in there. Let's head off to that imagery. Let's look at the surface map. There's the center of the low, as it was at late afternoon, with temperatures 60s and 70s out ahead of it, and then behind it 45, 32 with some light snow, 34 outside of Fargo, Grand Forks, 39 light rain. So this absolutely ushering in some of the coolest weather of the season, and likely going to drive some frost down into northern Nebraska later on the morning of the 5th. Satellite imagery. Here we are in the Dakotas once again. And if we come up here, we can see all of this opening. Now, typically, I would expect this to be clouded over. And you can see how the waves have chewed away at this deck of low clouds, which should bring them some at least some snow showers. That all of the holes, all of this texture has literally chewed away at the clouds. So they've cleared off when they probably shouldn't have. And the scale of this is on the order of hundreds of miles. And then all the holes, you can see them through Montana, there and there. It's just covering the whole state. And my time-lapse camera set up here. And so much of the afternoon on the imagery, you'll be able to see this band of clouds coming at us. And then through the morning hours, all of the chemtrails that have been abundant across Colorado. And then they continue on through the southwestern states. And they're going to be there for a while. So that's kind of what's happening here. We'll get this dumped into the computer and rendered off. Look at these holes. Look at all this. And then the change in wavelength with the holes running right down the middle. It's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. You're not going to get this kind of resolution showing up on the TV news. They're just not going to show you the little stuff. And it's the little stuff that makes the weather. It's the little stuff that makes the weather. So right, everybody, keep looking up. Good morning, Colorado. I guess Lucy says hi too. He was low. He was low and he's climbing too. And there's his buddy. I hadn't seen any all day, all morning yet. Hadn't heard any either. So we'll see if this is foretelling of what'll be a busy day, or if the bulk of the storm is not our east and we'll be okay, or just unmolested. Because the clouds are low. You can see they're kind of capped here. Kind of in this larger grand wave with the cumulus underneath them. A little haze in the air. And then of course our ever-present drones. That's that. We had these marking chemtrails begin to show up about 2:30. It's now about 4:30, about 2 hours ago. Just wasn't able to get outside and get a shot. But it was as the leading edge of this cirrus stuff began to work across the area, and we'll see that on time lapse as we get that going. And then we're on the edge of some cumulus here. We've got a low pressure that's over across southern Utah, beginning to build up in. Well, it's actually amplifying as this west coast imagery or a storm comes on in. Just kind of seeing what may be a downdraft wind kind of thing. So we just have some wind that hit the ground. We're giving us a little bit of a little dust storm out there. We'll get dust devils all the time on this valley floor. Very, very, very common occurrence here in the San Luis Valley. But what I was kind of wanted to show you, I need to get back. I really need a higher vantage point. Get past this tree. And it was these trails. Once again, just along the tops of the clouds. Just along the tops of the clouds. So these trails are prone . Here's another one off to the north. Essentially flown right at cloud top level. Precisely at cloud top level. I have some trees in the way, so it's kind of tough for me to get him. This is an interesting feature here. And then we've got our other two that are kind of beginning to deform here. And then another one coming up along from the west here. We'll see how he deforms to see what phenomena are going on in the atmosphere that he is tasked with investigating. Alright, so it looks like he's going through this structure right through here. And we can kind of see that it has a little oval shape with indentations on either side. And then the whole thing kind of roughly radiates out. And he's going through the heart of that hub, if you will. And he's slow. He is slow moving. Should be able to at least get a rough sketch on a paint scheme. Maybe, maybe not. Kind of looks like United. Continental United. White belly, blue fin, and the gold atlas outline of the Earth on the tail. And there's segments of it where it's persisting, it's brighter than others. But I would venture to guess that that was the target. Just like up here, this would be the target. And there he goes through it. So we'll see how much the tail persists or doesn't. Especially since once he crossed the center of this, the west side of the tail is persisting. Once you get past the midpoint, it is not. And then off on the horizon. It's been tough to walk outside and not see these trails in the sky, especially since we got past 2 this afternoon. This was the target for this one, and probably this spot in particular. As you can see the whole thing. It's just this kind of bit of a burst, and it'll be in alignment with something else downstream. And then there's always like a counterpart. And it may be this negative spot, this dark spot here, but these may be a matched pair. We've got something going on right in here as well that might be of interest to them at some point in the future. There's just all kinds of geometry. This is kind of an interesting cube. You're seeing holes inside of that. This is kind of a flare that they would likely draw a trail through. And then we have more trails on the horizon. There's some waves action. This might even be an older chemtrail, marking the top of a shear zone. In fact, that looks like exactly what it is, where you have one layer of the atmosphere static or holding slow or moving slower than another one rolling across it stronger, and that's going to get you the curls to show up. It'll get you your waves. And then this puppy's fairly fresh, and I'm kind of bounded by the tree, so I'm not able to see exactly what's going on. But it's been a relatively active day. We'll have a good satellite discussion tonight because there's much to look at from that. And now that we're in the high clouds, we're not likely to see a lot more. Here we go. Now there's the rippling. There's the rippling up there with the trails through it, actually below it. But that's the rippling. They're putting a bound on, a boundary. And there's the northern boundary. The trail's happening inside this zone. Trails are used to mark and identify and confine separate energies so they don't contaminate the surrounding field. Look at that. A little bit of a shadow as this plane leaves its trail, and he's just above the cloud deck. I mean, just above the cloud deck, and that dark spot was his target. As he then arced overhead, going through this, right there on this side of this loop, he went right through that. And then you can see him right through this opening with the center nose, if you will, or seam, and then the other one. And then he continues off into the sunset, where we've got some nice gridding showing up. Some going this way, some going this way. Notice how this trail ends in this Fall Street cloud. Notice how this trail comes out of the top of this burst with this trail run below. This one came out of the top of that burst. Fall Streak ends, or Fall Streak here is where the trail ends. And then we have rippling that begins anew, and this trail went right through it. So my question is, are the planes initiating these ripplings, or are they there just to target space-based weaponry? That's my question. Because when I see this rippling happening, it begins when the planes show up. It's as if the planes are initiating the modification. They're initiating the change in the atmosphere. So what I don't know is if they are like laser targets lit up that satellites can then see and do the work from space, or are the planes actually the mobile platform? That's my question. Are the planes the mobile platform? And over the last 2-3 years, this is becoming my conclusion, is that these planes are the platforms for doing this weather engineering work. Why not? Why not have them mobile? Why not have them able to fly over every bloody nation in this country or in this world except for a few? So I think the planes are the platforms above and beyond the chemtrailing. And the chemtrails are just there to ascertain their effectiveness of their manipulation of the atmosphere. All right, this is October 5, Friday. Probably not going to get back out here in the sunshine or in the daylight again. We'll end it with a satellite discussion. So everybody, share this, share these videos, share your knowledge with your friends and family. Keep looking up. All right, so I was lucky enough to get outside. Saw some great trails, but just couldn't, it wasn't appropriate to go grab the cram and shoot them. So you can see this cloud, you see the wispies on the top, with smears off to the left. Then on the bottom we have the smears to the right. Kind of like a very strong S shape with a bold center part. Here's another Fall Street cloud. Flat top, coming down in the shape of a cone. And then we had another trail come overhead. There it is. Off in there in the sunset. Yeah. So, there's another one that's come along. You're going to see a little brighter against the darker blue sky in the deepening twilight. But there was one over here, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see this. We have some rippling showing up here. Again, there's a trail that was right underneath this, run right along the bottom. I mean, the precision was ridiculous, but that's what they do. You see this one? It's got a break right here. This is a spot where we'd see another chemtrail flight come along. This little push out to the left, that's a spot that would deserve a cross flight. So would this gap here. And then you can see down here that it actually got one. And you can see how on the north part of this, of the trail that goes this way, the trail behaves very differently up here than it does down here. This other trail, this horizontal one, denotes that mark. It's there to mark off where these trails are deforming or breaking their continuity. And where the continuity is being broken, there's something happening energetically in the atmosphere. All right, I'm losing light. I'm going to dump this into Final Cut and see what we can make of it. All this swirling out here. This is not the atmosphere in a free-flowing mode like you would see in a river. There are disturbances, there are resonances that are constraining the flow of the water molecule. And the clouds must, or the water molecule must attach to that, and that then gives us the waves and the shapes that we're seeing. All right, we're going to roll back to this morning. Look at the East Coast, off the coast of Florida, at Georgia here. And again, I'm going to hit you with the holes. I'm going to hit these holes again hard because they're so apparent here and here, here. And what's curious is then you can see them on even a finer scale as we drop in and along off the coast of Louisiana, Mississippi. What is also unusual is these holes that are along the back edge of the cirrus, which is the high cloud shield, as this storm system then departed off the east coast. Hole here, hole here, hole here, and as we get closer, we can see the chemtrails off the coast of South Carolina, and some of the banded cirrus. See if I can get my cursor in here, in here. And so it's just a wholly engineered event, completely and utterly. Some unusual clouds across the middle part of Tennessee. We're going to shift out to the west a little bit farther, and then we're going to see another series of holes. Look at them all. And they're often in pairs. They're often in pairs. And these two, you can see how they've kind of been splashed, and then we've got the clouds ringing the outside of them. Here, the ripples come in, we meet a straight line, and then we see a whole other resonance pattern coming off. More holes as we come in on the smaller scale. There's some larger ones right here. And then some chemtrails as we get into North Texas. Or Oklahoma under clouds. Certainly some rain, very, very welcome there. Then we get on the back side of the storm. Hole this morning around Omaha. Then it drops down to about Concordia, Kansas. We have a hole here, and then from that we have the smooth streak of clouds. They're related. They're related. You can see gravity waves here in southwestern Kansas. There's another pair of openings as we get towards Raton, New Mexico. And in this low cloud deck, which is deep into the very, very chilly air, and you can see the gravity waves emitting from the waves. We'll come north, northern Colorado, into Wyoming, and we'll see more holes. All right, let's flip off to the western view so we can get that a little bit clearer. More holes, and then the ripples emanating or at least embedded within the holes. You shouldn't have those contrary geometric shapes embedded within one another unless one is causing the other. We go up to Montana. Hole, 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 hole. Look at them all. Littered. And from below, you can't even really see it. It becomes very, very difficult to see. Another hole here. This one's interesting because as we get closer, once the hole's in place, you can see the rippling or the banding as the moisture essentially piles up as it's inbound from this way, encounters the hole, and you're getting like a bow shock wave. Here's another pair of holes. This one with essentially a plume coming out of it, like a splash from a raindrop or a drop hitting the water. We'll see them up here. Holes, holes, hole, hole. Look at the precision in this. Boom, 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 boom. and the rippling on the outside. So the weather engineering is so far beyond the experimental phase, it's ridiculous. You know, the chemtrails were commonly believed to have begun in the 90s, and I say bold to that. I think it's been in place much, much longer than that. This is a streak of mid and high level clouds, of cirrus clouds, a little thick, but you can see all of the punctuating holes in here. You can see them with just exquisite precision. They're laid out. They're laid out. Let's come south. I'm here in the valley in the San Luis Valley, Colorado. You can see the waves as they've been compressed up against the mountains, and a few mountain top clouds, but we'll definitely look at the time lapse. I'll intercut that in today's stuff, and then the trails, the abundant trails. Don't mind the kids in the background, across the central valleys of California, as this next storm continues to spin off the coastal areas of California. You can see the stripes, the trails in there, but also what do we see when we get into this closer scale? We see these holes. So go watch the Boyd Bushman video I posted last week, and he discusses these and talks shares them as what he terms anode and node. One, an anode being a low pressure, and a node being a high pressure. The other way around, excuse me. An anode is a high pressure, where we would have this downward spiral of air. And then we get into northern Nebraska, and there's another set of two. Now we're moving into this afternoon's hours. You can see just this constant. And so if they're going to begin to manipulate the weather on a grand scale, they're going to need to align all of these holes so they can shape the clouds that are around them. We'll look into step back here into central Nevada or southern Nevada. There's one here and one here. Different kind of shape, different kind of hole, but nevertheless it is a substantially similar imprint. Look at the cube that surrounds it. And on the north side of it we have holes. South side of it we have holes. From this hole then squirts another cloud, intersects with this cloud. And all of this is necessary for these guys. And they've got these trails up there so they can align the holes so everything is in an aspect of precision that satisfies them. Western Oklahoma late this afternoon. Chemtrail southwest of Oklahoma City. And then we have more gravity waves all through here, these ripples. None of this is natural. None of this should be there. None of it whatsoever. All right, I'm going to step back. Take a look at the animation. Here's the storm coming off of California, the plume of moisture in. This puppy is going to not move ashore for every bit of 6 days. It's going to be out there. So we're getting emails from California, the Southwest. The trails will last for at least another week before we get this storm finally moved ashore. And actually it's going to be another one coming out of the North Pacific. So we're just going to have this slow oscillation as the primary aspect of the jet stream remains off to the north and kind of out of view. Let's go back to today's analysis. Here's the cold air. This is responsible for the snows and the chilly weather across the Great Lakes states and back into the Dakotas. Strong high off the coast of BC, subjecting the jet stream or pushing the jet stream way up north in Alaska, and then ushering in cool weather over the states for days to come. 24-hour forecast for tomorrow. Low still sits off Northern California. Still a plunging of chilly air. May see some light snows in this area from Colorado into upstate or upslope regions of Wyoming, and then some chilly air will push into the central Rockies. This high remains anchored. Beautiful fall weather for the Pacific Northwest and the entire Gulf of Alaska basin. Just some gorgeous fall weather that remains in place. This goes into Monday morning, 12 Monday, and this low is oblonged. We're still in a minor southerly flow, so we're still going to see the trailing. In this kind of a setup, I'd expect to see trailing here, along this gap, and then back into here. This is where I'd expect to see copious amounts of trailing, and then also up into here, and then right into this little flat zone where there's just a little bit of light red and some negative vorticity advection here, the light blue, up in the northern part of Minnesota. And then finally, as we get to next Tuesday, this low still begins to slowly wander inland. It's not terribly wet. It's not terribly dynamic. It'll pick up a little water, and we'll likely see some rains begin in the Sierras and Siskiyous, maybe not so much the Siskiyous, but certainly towards the central and southern Sierras we'll get some rain. And then a change in the jet stream. This big ridge that's out here is kind of squeezed along the coastline, and it'll probably collapse under the weight of a very, very fast westerly flow coming in off the Pacific. So for tomorrow, if we're going to look at chemtrails, California, not so much Oregon. There might be some in here ahead of this ripple. In fact, let's go to the actual forecast. In this area through the southwest, out across Kansas, I would expect to see some in the coastal areas of the Carolinas, and then underneath this, all underneath this, will probably be littered, but you'll be under the clouds, so at best, you'll just hear the planes overhead. All right, everybody, we are winding down. It's 7:18 Mountain Time, and share this. These programs will not end. They will not end until the people finally see.